Most of the bigger disaster movies that we've seen are about natural disasters kind of on steroids. What we tried to focus on here was the idea of unnatural disasters.
Technology that is ultimately manipulated and weaponized because somebody decided that if you could control the weather, you could control the world.
The things in the movie couldn't happen in nature, but if a machine created it in nature, then how would it behave? What would happen then?
The visual effects are massive in this movie, and obviously Dean Devlin is no newcomer to visual effects.
We've tried to make these unnatural disasters that behave naturally, and to let that give us brand new images and create intensity that we've never seen before.
We're not doing anything different with weather, we're just doing a lot more of it. We're making it 100 times bigger than it would be, but we're following the physics of a surge.
We've seen in a movie what a tornado looks like, or even if there's 2 tornadoes in a location. But to see a machine create 50 tornadoes in one location and then let them loose, what would happen?
We're dealing with virtually every kind of weather and how the weather impacts the infrastructure and the structure of our society.
We've had some of the most incredible opportunities to work with some of the strangest climate possibilities. And in Hong Kong, a heat anomaly happens based on what can happen if something goes horribly wrong with an infrastructure of a city.
We have the domino effect of buildings falling in Hong Kong, which is so, like, physics not real, but we actually shot all those buildings, reconstructed them all, built them in CG, built what's in the walls, put the furniture in every room, did all the lighting, put all the dust and dirt on the buildings, and then knocked them over. And you go, okay, this is cool. So the Mumbai sequence that deals with the tornadoes, we wanted something really dynamic. So each tornado had a different character because we didn't want them all just to be like that. So we had that, and then we did have one of those, and we had one that was an S that moved slowly. And then the part where we have it go into the city, we got a warehouse with an alley in it. We couldn't get a lot of wind machines in there. We did what we could, but ended up shooting a lot of CG garbage and debris, so we had to rebuild a lot of that street. The fabulous heat wave in Russia. To get the elements, we sent a team to Russia and shot Red Square. And then I built little models out of cardboard tubes and paper and set them on fire. It's really interesting to see the deformation of things and how it happens, how the ice would fall. Reference is key. You can't beat physics. For Lightning Chase in Orlando, we of course shot that in New Orleans. The storm's coming, and the object of the sequence is lightning's normal, and then the lightning gets bigger and bigger until it's suddenly like 18,000 lightning bolts hitting. There's a lot of things about lightning bolts, like they're so bright they don't expose right. If they don't expose right, you can't show depth. So in order to get depth into the sequence, you have to dim them. Shrinking them doesn't really sell that it was farther away because the lightning bolt doesn't have scale. It could just be a smaller lightning bolt. So that was a particularly difficult problem to solve.
What would it be like to live in the 4th generation of the International Space Station that we know of now? What if it had gravity? You know, what if it was larger than an aircraft carrier?
The ISS is made up of several different pieces. There's 9 massive sets that each has a function, each is a story point. We had to then create different areas within the ship that tells a global story about the ship.
When I came onto the space station and I see the shuttle bay and I see the ISS command center and I see the satellite docking bay, all of these sets helped so much to kind of create that reality around us.
Some of these sets are partially built and then digitally extended, and some of them are completely built. And these hallways were completely built, so it had a visceral impact on all of us.
You know, the space station obviously is a full CG construction, design of which was based off of the real space station. We talked to futurists, we saw how it's going to go. whole third act of the movie takes place with the space station completely falling apart around it. They had to build the space station with the idea it's going to blow up. You know, when you do visual effects, you got to carry the emotion. So you build all that into all of these things, and that became another component of trying to make this whole thing work.
When it comes to the effects, is we're trying to do things in two directions simultaneously. On one hand, we're trying to really push some boundaries and do things that haven't been done before, like the way in which we're doing face capture and putting into digitally animated characters and molding that together. But at the same time, we're trying to do really old-fashioned techniques, you know, where we hang a guy on wires and move him through a set. So I think sometimes we become too enamored with the technology, and I think it's more important, what is the right technique for the shot you're trying to do? That's part of the process of deciding how you're going to approach your special effects, and that's where it gets really exciting.
In the year of 2019, hurricanes, tornadoes, floods, and droughts unleashed a wave of destruction upon our planet.
Geostorm is a what-if story. What if we wait too long to deal with extreme climate change? What would happen if we did build a machine? And what could go wrong?
Are you going back up to space?
I'm coming back. I promise.
The vision for this movie began with Dean Devlin. Actually, the vision of the movie probably began with Dean Devlin's daughter, Hannah.
A few years ago, when my eldest daughter was 6, I was explaining climate change, and she said, why can't we just build a machine that fixes that? And that sparked all these ideas.
And like any good parent, you know, Dean immediately went, wait a minute, why can't we do that? What would that look like?
Dean, who has the mindset of working on giant films like Independence Day and Stargate and Godzilla, immediately thought to himself, there's a big, fun disaster movie in answering that question.
I had been struggling for a while to try and pull this story together, and I started talking to Paul Guillot.
He had this idea just about manipulating the weather and how something that's initially used for good, somebody will inevitably use it for evil. The first scene he pitched me was this scene in Afghanistan where the soldiers come upon the frozen village.
He said, what's the stumbling block for you? And I said, well, I'm writing a movie about 2 brothers and I'm an only child. And he said, well, I know about brothers.
Hey, if there's a problem with that station, it's because of the people you put up there, not the work I did.
I believe strongly in writing the first draft very, very quickly, because you're going to spend a long time polishing and rewriting and changing it.
Once we got a really good story with a beginning, middle, and end and some really great characters, we were off and running.
There are tens of thousands of storm simulations in here, and each one is starting in a different place.
They all end the same way. A geostorm.
A geostorm is a storm of planetary proportions. Many storms combine in such a way that it becomes one massive storm that dominates the planet.
Science fiction always works better when it is about something, when you are trying to say something.
The science itself is a beautiful thing. It's the people that use it for the right or wrong purposes. The space station, the system of satellites, it's actually beautiful. And I always felt of it through this movie, kind of like a character. You realize by the end, it did no wrong. It only did the right thing. It only did what it was asked to do.
The movie definitely has a point of view that if we don't figure out how to stop what's happening in terms of weather disasters in the world, it could be a really bad thing for the future.
It's dangerous to mess around with Mother Nature because once you get into issues where something like this, like what's happening in the movie, it could happen.
It's much better to take care of the planet right now instead of trying to make technology fix what we ruined.
I love the way this film says global warming is happening. It's not even a question. And the only way that we are going to be able to deal with it eventually is through science. Then it leaves the bigger esoterical question as to what does that mean?
The story that Dean's telling is, it's a cautionary tale saying that, yeah, we have it all, but don't lose your humanity, man. Remember, the planet is so small.
Manual reboot activated.
If Dutch Boy has a catastrophic failure, you can create what we call a geostorm. Simultaneous catastrophic weather events triggered all over the globe.
One of the things that was great about Geostorm is it just organically lends itself to having an international cast.
We need an international team on the station itself.
Why are we having this discussion? This is crazy. We need to do something about this right away. One of the first discussions that David Ellison and I had is we said, this is an issue that affects the whole world. We want to make a movie that can speak to the whole world.
The nations of the world have finally come together to address climate change and created the project, Dutch Boy, which is a series of satellites that are orbiting the Earth, basically controlling the weather. It's created peace on our planet.
The basic concept of the movie really required the entire world to band together, and we really wanted to make sure that was reflected in the casting of this picture.
Not just that they had different accents, but that they somehow, on a more spiritual level, really represented other parts of the world so that we could feel this world in one small microcosm.
Let me introduce you to your team.
Oh, of course, an American.
Actually, my brother and I were born in the UK, but thank you.
It's not just some initiative that's American or British or European. Eddie Adisa's Nigerian, which is the same as me. We have Eugenio Derbez, who's Mexican. You have Amara Waked, who's French, Egyptian. Got Robin Sheehan, who's Irish, playing English. You got Alex, German.
The whole world is in that station.
I think that's what it should be if this was a real-life situation, that it would be a global initiative to figure out how to control the weather so that there's less disasters.
It's like being in the UN. Yeah, it's been really lovely.
Everyone comes with his own story from his part of the world, you know? And I think this is the spirit and this is the energy that's driving us on this set.
We got along very well and it was just perfect.
We love each other so much and we have a lot of fun on set.
You can only live in the moment, so you gotta have as much fun as possible because they're the experiences you remember.
You got any room in there for me?
Danny Wu plays Cheng in the picture, who is a character who had gone to college with Jim Sturgis' character, Max, and he becomes part of the Dutch Boy program that works out of Asia. We wanted to have a very strong Chinese actor for the part.
I found it interesting to be an integral part of the story, because without Zhang, you don't have the discovery of what's happening in the Dutch Boy system.
Yeah, hello?
I just got into DC. We have to meet. I figured it all out.
He's a legitimate star in China. When we were shooting on the streets of Hong Kong, we had over 100 PAs trying to keep people away because they were so excited about him. Great, let's do that. I like it. I think it's funny.
Okay.
It's good.
It was just like something that happened. I was like,
no, it was great. And he absolutely can play a part in any American film seamlessly. It was just so fortunate to find an actor who literally had feet in both worlds. And then I'll say go, and then just run, jump into the car. That's great. That's a print.
I always like these kind of big event films, but I also liked how Dean wrote Zhang's character, how he was very sensitively written. Zhang is not speaking with a really bad Chinese accent. He's breaking stereotypes of, Asian characters.
I don't understand. We both have clearance.
Exactly. And the only people that have the authority to block it are in the building you work in.
Part of the perks of my job is you get to create the president you'd want. In the original script, we didn't have an actor in mind.
It was actually our producer, David Ellison, who had the idea, what about Andy Garcia as the president?
The environment was my late wife's greatest passion and purpose.
Andy Garcia plays President Palma. He's an incredible leader, wildly charismatic.
United, we stand. United, we can. Every president has a different sense of humor or point of view of life and philosophy, but also you're responsible for the safety of the world.
It's a very tough character to play because we never know if he's a good guy or a bad guy. So he had to walk a very narrow line with this part.
He really stepped into those shoes and really did that role justice.
You realize you're implicating the Secretary of State in this?
He was a great president.
It was Dean's idea to say, what if we make him the first Hispanic president of the United States? And I said, I thought that would be an interesting thing.
Que Dios los bendiga, and may God bless America.
There was a campaign Palmer poster, and I remember thinking, there's few people that can sort of generate that level of sort of presidential power in just one photograph.
I'm the goddamn president of the United States of America.
I think fans around the world will be able to have a sense of ownership to the film, because it won't just be a product that came from Hollywood. It really is something designed to be global.